Good evening, folks, and welcome back to another episode of NASCAR Backmarker Battles. I am your host, Colby Evans, aka Starting Parker on Twitter. And yes, to start right off the bat, unfortunately, we're not doing this on a Thursday as we usually are doing. Today is usually the day for the ARCA Racing podcast, but since the ARCA entry list for this weekend hasn't come out yet, I can't do the show. So I thought, why not flip my usual shows? So tonight we'll be doing NASCAR Backmarker Battles. And on Thursday, we'll just be doing the ARC Racing podcast, so we're basically just flipping the shows for 1 week. But yeah, thank you guys for joining in tonight. We got a big show tonight. We're going to go over Darlington, all three races. The backmarkers struggled at Darlington. A couple of them got some good runs, but man, Darlington this past weekend was not very kind to the backmarkers. And we'll also be previewing this weekend's races at North Wilkesboro. Yes, NASCAR returns to North Wilkesboro for the first time since 1996. A very special weekend for all NASCAR fans. Two great weekends of, you can call this weekend at Wilkesboro throwback. So basically 2 straight throwback weekends. It's a lot of fun. It's a great time to be a NASCAR fan right now. And yeah, I was supposed to go to Wilkesboro this year, but unfortunately some late travel arrangements just didn't come through. So wish I was there, but it's all right. So we're going to go through my little intro and we will jump right into the action. We're going to cut it down a little bit. You guys know the drill. Follow me on social media. It's in the link. Like and subscribe to the channel. We just hit over 1,100 subs. Turn on the bell for notifications so you guys never miss a podcast when I go live. And yes, of course, check out the racingexperts.com for all NASCAR media related content. Ooh, got all that done. So now let's get right into the action. So we had all 3 series at Darlington. I've made it very clear on this podcast multiple times that Darlington is, if not my favorite track on the schedule, to watch races and to actually race on. I don't own iRacing, but I own NASCAR Heat, and I own a full simulator setup for NASCAR Heat, and I love racing Darlington. It's my favorite track to race on. So obviously I have just super high hopes for this weekend. And first off, I'll say overall, the weekend didn't disappoint. I will say it got a little boring at some times, but I think that happens in every race weekend. You just got to accept that. So starting off with the truck series, we'll say kind of disappointed at some of the lack of throwbacks. We did have quite a few throwbacks in the truck race. I would say almost the truck race had the most in some way. They had a lot of throwbacks in this race. So shout out to the teams who did participate. If I had to vote for favorite throwback in the truck series, oh God. Well, and you're in the comments section, you guys vote who your favorite truck throwbacks were. I would say my favorites were Ted Musgrave's, Timmy Hill's throwback to Ted Musgrave, Corey Haim's throwback to Red Horse and Timothy Peters, Nick Sanchez's throwback to Mario Andretti, and I'll give a special shout out to Johnny Sauter throwing it back to Jason Leffler. Those would probably be some of my favorite throwback trucks. We had 37 trucks here for 36 spots. The oddball entry in the field was the 47 of G2G Racing. Now, there was a lot of speculation on what the 47 was at Kansas. Was it a start and park? Was it a legit mechanical problem? As far as G2G is concerned on their podcast, it was a legit mechanical problem. But by all accounts, from what I overheard, Tim Vines was called into the NASCAR hauler post-Kansas. I think right after he got out of the truck. We didn't hear about any fines. We didn't hear about any of that, so I don't think anything of that went down. They brought the exact same truck to Darlington this weekend for Dawson Cream. It was the exact same truck. Both trucks, actually. Both G2G trucks were the exact same trucks from Kansas. Brennan Poole, of course, stayed in the 46, and like I said, Dawson Cram in the 47. So we were going to have a DNQ here, and going into this, I was concerned for Josh Rayom. Him and Massey did part ways. Rayom would go on to later say in an interview that he was surprised. So that kind of tells you that the split between him and Massey was sudden. It wasn't really like a bad falling out. It just kind of ended. Abruptly. And you can definitely tell it's had an effect on the Rayom team. But yeah, we had 37 trucks here. Looking at the practice sessions, we had some real shockers in practice for some back markers. We had the 47 truck. Dawson Cram is a wheelman, 12th quickest. 12th quickest in practice. Some other oddballs on the entry list here that I did forget to mention. We had Caden Honeycutt returning, or I guess making his debut. He's going to be in the 20 this weekend. Spoiler alert, so I say returning. But he was making his debut in the 20 for Randy Young. Ryan Vargas was back with On Point Motorsports. Like I said, Josh Rim was in his own 33. Ross Chastain was back in the 41. Parker Kligerman in the 75 team were back. Corey LaJoy in the Spire team. This was a very oddball entry. Did not expect to see that team back. Still good to see Corey in the truck series. And we had Bubba Wallace once again in the one truck. Other than that, you kind of had your standard truck series guys. But going back to practice, the back markers, like I said, that did good. Dawson Cram 12th, Caden Honeycutt in the 2013. Caden, I mean, get this kid a ride. I understand, you got to have money to be competitive in the sport, but goddamn, Caden Honeycutt is an absolute beast. And this is a Young's Motorsports teams, and we've been critical on Young's, and believe me, we'll get to Young's a little bit more in the truck race when we actually talk about the truck race itself. But Caden is such a wheelman. It makes me sad that he only had a couple of race funding for Roper, and I understand that's just how business works. But man, it's a shame when you see guys like Caden Honeycutt who don't have full-time rides. But man, when they get in there and they take full advantage of these opportunities. Other back markers that did fairly decent. I guess you could consider the 45 a back marker. I mean, he's kind of, even though he's driving for Nice, he's always in the lower tier pack, 20th. The 75 team, I'll say, I don't know what happened to the 75 team over the offseason, but Henderson Motorsports is nowhere near as competitive as they were last year. I don't know if it's just engines or they missed a setup, but I don't know if it's just me, but the 75 team have not felt the same. Last year, they were beast of a team, and they won that road course race at Mid-Ohio. This year, we haven't seen anything out of them. They've literally done nothing in every start that they've been in. The back markers that did struggle, Josh Rim was slowest. They think they brought their own tires. I don't even think they bought a set, because I believe he said they qualified on 6-lap scuffs. So that must have meant that they brought a set of scuffs, because he was majorly off the pace in qualifying by over almost 2.5 seconds. Johnny Sauter, I thought Johnny Sauter would really give Roper Racing some better results, but he didn't really do much in that 04 truck at Kansas, and only 36 quickest in practice. Spencer Boyd, well, we usually expect that out of Spencer Boyd. Brett Holmes, I think the biggest problem for Brett Holmes, we all love Brett Holmes. I love Brett Holmes. But I think the biggest problem we're seeing with that 32 truck team, no sponsorship. And when you're fielding that truck completely out of your pocket, you can't do much. Sometimes you have to run the same motor over and over again. Your tire bill might not be able to be as good as it would be if you had sponsorship. So I think, unfortunately, even though they are running a stable truck operation, Brett Holmes Racing is really struggling, not having any sufficient full-time sponsorship, which sucks because we know Brett can drive. We know he can drive. We know he's capable of winning. But, like I said, when you move up from ARCA to truck, and again, you're going from a 20-race ARCA schedule to a 30, I wish it was 30, to a 24-race truck schedule, or 23, 24-race truck schedule. And those couple races can make quite a difference. Colby Howard, it's just been a rough year for CR7, rough 2 years. And it really is not down to their drivers, Blaine Perkins last year and Colby Howard this year. Just no luck. I mean, if there is a team in the garage area that cannot buy luck whatsoever, it is CR7 Motorsports, which is a shame because they've got some good crews over there. And they got a good driver. Corey LaJoy was surprisingly only 30th quickest. Deegan down in 28th. That was definitely surprising. The Gray brothers outside the top 25. Brennan Poole in the 46 G2G out practicing, I should say. DiBenedetto, Deegan, and both of the Grays was quite surprising to see. But then again, it's Brennan Poole, so we shouldn't be too shocked. In qualifying, obviously all eyes were on the 47. He slowed down majorly from practice, but still managed to crack into the field. The last truck to get in on time was the 47, and unfortunately, with the 7 qualifying in and the 20 qualifying in, that bumped the 33 of Josh Rayom from the field, which really sucks because he had a beautiful Ken Block tribute truck. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful wrap. It was matte, which I love. I prefer matte wraps over gloss wraps. And, Toby Christie, shout out to Toby Christie, caught up with him. And it was a really sad interview. And in my opinion, it points a sad picture when Josh Rayom blatantly, and I'm glad he did. I'm glad Josh said it because, you should be honest in this business. More lower guys should be honest in this business that they would have actually lost money. Had Josh Rayom made the field tonight and raced, they would have lost money. It's actually cheaper for them to miss the show. That is extremely sad. It's extremely sad. But we see it every week. I mean, you see Bob Pockris post the purses. Cup Series, what, $8 million for the whole field? Xfinity Series, what, $1.3, $1.4 million for the whole field? And then you see the Truck Series, what, $800,000? Sometimes it's under $700,000. And you got to think, you're splitting that between 36 trucks. That's a joke. I mean, people call ARCA purses a joke, which, I mean, I have never agreed with the ARCA purses. I definitely think they should be raised at least by a couple thousand. But not to say that truck purses are any better, realistically. It really sucks. It really sucks to hear Josh Rayom blatantly say that they would have actually lost money making the race. Now, with all the attrition that happened in the race, I don't know if he probably could have made some money because there was a lot of attrition and Josh probably could have gotten a good finish. But it's so sad to hear that. It really is because Josh is such a hardworking guy and it's been a tough couple weeks for them. The 22 truck was withdrawn. The deal with AM Racing, I don't think it's done, but it looks like it's definitely on some sort of hiatus as AM Racing are fielding the truck themselves this weekend. Spoiler alert, without Rayom's help. And the 34 truck, for all means, has been disbanded. And it looks like that Rayom is putting all their focuses into just the 33. And it sucks because this team, I think they got an 11th place finish at Texas with Massey just about a month ago. So, trying times in the Truck Series for the lower tier teams. But Rayom is definitely having a rough year, and it's not getting any better. And unfortunately, with missing the race and falling deeper and deeper in the owner's points, I would, with all due respect, I would say he's walking right into another DNQ at Wilkesboro with how low the 33 truck fell in points after Darlington. So I'll spoiler alert there too. Lots of spoiler alerts early. But we get to the actual race itself. Race was okay. I did miss some of it due to a family dinner. But I was able to catch updates on my phone. Luckily, the first couple of stages weren't very eventful. They kind of just ran to the stage. We did have some action for the backmarkers. Unfortunately, the G2G trucks had a rough day. The 46, while running in the top 25, blew up. So that's Ilmore for you. That's another engine failure for Ilmore. I don't blame that on G2G. Ilmore, I've been very critical. You guys know I've been kind of critical of Ilmore on this channel. So I actually don't blame that on G2G. Dang it. G2G. Can't pronounce that right. But I've been very critical of Ilmore. So I don't blame that on the 46. I blame that on Ilmore. They've definitely had their fair share of engine problems last year and are still having engine problems this year. And that's why I'll tell you again, I don't like spec motors. The 47 mysteriously pulled off after 36 laps, and the reason listed was mechanical. They did list that it was a mechanical issue that put the 47 out. Now note that 36 laps is about what they can do on a fuel run. 46 laps of the stage. So it makes me wonder, did they have an engine failure or did they pull the truck off because the 46 blew up? I don't know. But either way, rough day for G2G, 35th and 36th. Parker Kligerman, like I said before, I don't know what's happening to this 75 team. Oil leak during the stage 1 caution, so they were done for the day. Spencer Boyd was driving so slow as usual. He was getting caught by the peg. Johnny Sauter, again, surprisingly, just no speed. Like, just didn't look like there was any speed in the truck. He was getting lapped. Lawless Allen and his beautiful Adam Petty throwback. I mean, I think he won probably throwback of the race for trucks. Can't go wrong with an Adam Petty truck. He had another rough race. Lawless just can't buy any brakes. And then it came to the crashes. We had a couple of accidents on the front stretch. Shout out to Mario Andretti. They had the 2 truck making that awesome save, and Mario in the booth. Just having Mario Andretti in the booth for a truck race, you don't realize how special those kinds of moments are. God bless Mario Andretti. He is just awesome. And then came the shenanigans of the last couple laps where the usual chaos ensues for the truck series. Unfortunately for Timmy, who on pure pace, Timmy Hill drove up to the top 10. 47 was overheating. Thank you, Dan, in the chat. So good. It's good to know that it was actually a legit mechanical problem. So I'm glad. Well, I hate to see that at the same time because I know Dawson could get that truck in the top 20, but I'm glad to hear that it was a legit mechanical problem. But yeah, going back to the late race shenanigans, Timmy Hill was running top 10 on pure pace. Timmy's very good at Darlington. Unfortunately, I didn't quite see it because I was at the family dinner. Did he spin on pit road? Is that what happened for the people who were watching the race? Did the 56 spin on pit road? I think someone was saying something about that because all of a sudden Timmy dropped in the list of drivers. But either way, chaos ensued. Just big crash after big crash after big crash. The race ended under yellow. Corey Hine made an amazing move. He said he passed like 20 trucks on the bottom. But yeah, it was a chaos-infueled finish that ended under caution, which, just doesn't, again, put the truck series in the best light. Truck series has been kind of rough this year, like I said. But we got a great winner out of it. Christian Eckes and Bill McAnally get another win. Who would have thought that Bill McAnally Racing would have 2 wins this season? I wouldn't have called that, but I think, you look at Thor Sport Racing and letting Christian Eckes go was clearly a mistake. And there's Christian, with 2 wins, a championship favorite. Meanwhile, Thor Sport is, I would really say, is struggling. They're not doing that good. But yeah, chaos ensued at the finish. Still most of the field finished. We only had, even looking through the field again, we only had a couple more dropouts. Spencer Boyd dropped out after 78 laps with a fuel pump issue. And, of course, Lawless Allen crashed out again. Chris Wright hit the wall again. He finished at least. But he got a Darlington stripe. But like I said, Darlington in general, outside of a couple of trucks, was not the most kindest to the backmarkers. The highest backmarker, this is a celebration, though. Caden Honeycutt for Randy Young. And by the way, I think Caden Honeycutt and that team had a very underrated throwback. They were throwbacking to Stefan Parsons from Bristol earlier this year. Yes, the 20 truck was completely blank. Not a single decal on that truck. And they got a top 10 finish. Caden Honeycutt's a beast. We said it at the very beginning. He deserves a ride. I hope he gets one day. I really hope Caden Honeycutt gets a ride that can really show off his talent. But, man, you've got a guy like Caden Honeycutt there in his very first start for Young's, and he just blows his teammates completely out of the water. I really like this team. It's not meant to crap on Young's Motorsports. Spencer Boyd, all due respect to him, he sucks. Okay? We have seen no improvement out of this guy. If anything, Spencer Boyd has gotten worse. Is it the Young's Motorsports equipment? I know Ilmore's engines are not making it any easier. They're going up in price every damn year. But is Spencer Boyd really losing talent every single year? He's getting slower and slower and slower as the years go by. Chris Wright, I'm sorry, the guy wrecks almost every single week. And yet, whoever they put in that 20 truck, whether it's Stefan, whether it's Caden Honeycutt, they go out there and they outrun the full-time guys. What are we doing here? What are we doing here with this team? And it's not meant to hate the team. I like Tyler Young. I've met Randy Young. I've met them in the garage area. They're good guys, hardworking guys. Young's Motorsports guys are very hardworking people. But goddamn, the drivers that are in those trucks cannot do anything. Is Spencer Boyd really that slow? Or do they just give him a crappy motor? Why does Chris Wright hit the wall in almost every single race he's in? But then you put the guy in the unsponsored truck, no sponsorship. He paid for the ride, goes out there and gets a top 10 finish, while your guys can barely crack the top 25. What are we doing here? What is this team doing? It's the part-time guys and for Youngs that always seem to outrun the full-time guys. And I can still say I like Spencer Boyd. I've met Spencer Boyd multiple times. Lovely guy to have a chat with. Always down to sign an autograph for a fan. Always down to take a picture with a fan. But my God, this guy is so slow. I talked about it back in my Kansas review. He was literally running side by side with the Rayom truck for 5 straight laps. It was actually probably one of the most entertaining battles of the whole race. But Young's, I love Rayom Brothers Racing, but Young's is past them. They have more funding than them. And yet you have Mason Maggio, who's made only a couple of Truck Series attempts. He's right there with Spencer Boyd, outrunning Spencer Boyd, a guy who's had over 100 NASCAR starts. I don't get it. It's not meant to trash Young's Motorsports, but it's just like, what are we doing? What is Spencer Boyd doing at this point? What is Chris Wright doing at this point? And they try to defend themselves. But I'm like, Chris, you try to defend yourself all the time, but look at the 44 truck last year. I mean, he wrecked so many times for Nice last year. They parted ways at the end of last year. He took the 68 team in Xfinity out of the top 20 bonus. They lost that $80,000 bonus in the last race. And this year in the 02 truck, he's just done nothing. So I don't know what Young's Motorsports is doing here. I think they need to definitely condense down to 2 trucks for 2024 because, man, this 3-truck deal is not working for them, especially with the drivers they got in these trucks. If they want to run 3 trucks, fine, but get some guys in there who can actually do stuff. Not guys who are going to run 25th and still manage to tear up the truck. Well, I mean, for Spencer Boyd, he doesn't tear up the truck. He's so slow. He's so slow. How that guy has a sponsored truck every week, I will never understand. Seriously, the slowest guys in the garage always seem to get sponsors. But yet there's Caden Honeycutt, one of the most talented youngsters in the NASCAR scene, and he has to pay for a ride. I just wanted to talk about that. I wanted to talk about that because it's definitely a little frustrating. To me, it's frustrating. Young's Motorsports is a top 20 caliber team. We know that. Caden's run proves that. But you have top 25 drivers in a top 20 team. So, sorry. I had to talk about that. Some other good backmarker runs. Corey LaJoie in 16th for Spire. Colby Howard in that team actually finally got a semi-decent run, 17th for that team. Other than that, a lot of trucks really struggled. Timmy Hill's team deserved better than 24th. Brett Holmes, we mentioned them earlier. Kind of the lack of sponsorship, I feel like, is hurting that team. Only 23rd. Ryan Vargas, 27. Johnny Sauter, 28. That was a surprising, disappointing finish. Chris Wright was 29th. But yeah, and Spencer Boyd down in 33rd. And then, of course, the 2 G2G trucks run at the field. Overall, I thought the race was still very good. You don't have to go back and watch the whole thing, but I'll definitely go back and watch the highlight package for sure. Trucks at Darlington, glad they came back a couple years ago. And, yeah, they need to stay at that track. Darlington should be a mainstay on the Truck Series schedule. So now we move on to Xfinity. We had a big field of cars here, 41 cars for 38 spots. Some of the oddball entries for this race, we had quite a few. We had the return of the 3 car in the Xfinity Series, Ty Dillon. Blaine Perkins returns to the 02. Stefan stays in the 07 again. Kyle Larson was put in the 10 car for Kaulig. That was a very oddball entry. I guess you could kind of say that Larson was also running a Darlington throwback to Ricky Hendrick, if you want to count it, because technically it is a throwback scheme, even if it is his current primary. Corey Heim was in the 24 again. Excuse me there, sorry. Patrick Emmerling was back in the 35 for Emmerling Gase. Sage Karam was in the 44. Jeffrey Earnhardt was moved over to the 45. Matt Mills was in the 53. Chad Fincham was in the 66 for Carl Long. Dawson Cram was once again in the 74. Carson Hocevar was in the 77 for now it's kind of funny. They actually had the car listed under Ronnie Bassett Jr. on Racing Reference, so shows the quality of Racing Reference these days. And Ross Chastain was actually in the 91 again for DGM. So we had a big entry list here. And, the one thing I was worried about coming into this race, once again, CHK and MBM. The teams who have flat out struggled the most in 2023. CHK missing almost 10 races this season, and MBM missing over half the races this season. It's been a really tough year for them. And we know the financial struggles that MBM has been in. They've been publicly documented. Talladega, I mean, had they not made Talladega, MBM might not even still be in business. It was definitely up in the air. If MBM missed Talladega, would they still be here? Mike Harmon's team, they just keep plugging away every single week. It sucks because, those guys work their asses off. I know Ryan Bell very well over at that 74 team, and he busts his ass. So it just sucks to see him struggle this much. In practice didn't show much for backmarkers. The highest considered backmarker, I would say, was Stefan Parsons. That's just because he's a wheelman. Stefan Parsons is a wheelman in 9th. Brennan Poole in 6th. Again, Brennan Poole is a beast. And that's what I love about Darlington. Darlington's the kind of track you don't necessarily need the best car. If you really know how to drive Darlington, you can run very good even in a mediocre car. The problem is that it's just with handling, the setup, and if your team missed the setup by just a little bit over those big teams, they're going to overtake you very quickly. But it looked potential. A lot of potential coming out of practice into qualifying. The 66 actually was inside the top 33. Chad Fincham was 31st. Some surprises in practice. Kaz Gralla down in 26th. Ryan Ellis down in 40th. And Gray Galding. It was a rough weekend for Gray Galding. He only ran 2 laps of practice. Just basically said the car was evil. Said the same thing in his qualifying lap. Just the car was evil all weekend. And I was curious because I listened to the radio for the 08 car. And Gray was just not having a good time out there. And, it sucks because he has great sponsorship from Panini Trading Cards. But, man, was he really struggling out there. It's like he said he had nothing in the front end, nothing in the rear end, and it was basically like the car was about to wreck almost every single lap. He wouldn't try on restarts, and he was basically just running by himself the whole race. So that really sucked for Gray. Come qualifying, so I did have some skepticism on whether the 66 could make the show. Unfortunately, that skepticism was taken away. Dawson Cram, unfortunately, despite showing some slight good speed in practice, maybe they had a shot at it. That wasn't meant to be. They had a mechanical problem coming to the finish line to finish up their qualifying lap, so they were slow, so they were a luck to go home. The 66 did beat a couple of cars, but not enough. The 66 goes home again. And Garrett Smithley. Garrett Smithley cannot buy a break this year. 5th DNQ of the year for Garrett Smithley, but only the 3rd one that was really his fault. The 2 races that got rained out, I won't. Well, Daytona, that's all car, and Auto Club was a rain out. So I don't count those 2 because those 2 are really out of his control. Really tough year for Garrett Smithley, man, and tough year for Johnny Davis. Brennan Poole was 35th, but he hit the wall in his qualifying run, so they would actually withdraw his car from the race. Well, they didn't withdraw. They just loaded it up. And Garrett Smithley's 4 car became Brennan Poole's primary for the race. So that's kind of funny. You don't usually see that many times. Greg Gaulding, again, was one of the slowest cars, just evil car. It looked evil. Didn't look like it had any speed. The Dale Earnhardt throwback for Jeffrey Earnhardt. I'm an Earnhardt fan, so I'm going to just say without the gate, even if you guys don't agree with me, I think Jeffrey Earnhardt had the best throwback with the Wheaties throwback Earnhardt car. Call me an Earnhardt mark, but I'm an Earnhardt fan at heart, so I got to go with the 45 as my favorite throwback. So shout out to Alpha Prime Racing for having the best throwback, in my opinion. You guys can obviously have yours, but I'm taking the 45 car as my favorite because anytime we see an Earnhardt throwback with an Earnhardt, I love it. But yeah, like I said, looking at the actual qualifying results, I mean, I wouldn't really say there was any considered backmarker organizations until maybe Jeremy Clements in 19th, but I don't really consider them a backmarker because they never really run outside the top 25. They were about 20th. Ross Chastain was 21st. Sage Karam pulled a Ross Chastain in qualifying 22nd. Carson Hocevar did qualify for his first race, but remember, the 77 for Hocevar was really a glorified junior motorsports car, so had he not qualified for the race, that would have been pretty embarrassing. The race itself was a lot more calmer than it was eventually. It eventually did get crazy, but it was calm in the beginning. Riley Herbst, rough weekend for Ken Block throwbacks. The truck missed the race for Rayom, and Riley Herbst early in the race hit the wall twice with the Ken Block tribute, and they were done early, which really sucks because both Ken Block tributes this past weekend were beautifully done. Beautifully done, and a great tribute to a fallen friend. Blaine Perkins hit the wall a couple of times, which really sucks because I feel like that throwback. I think we had 6 Kevin Harvick throwbacks in this race, and as awesome as the 0-2 throwback was, it's like it was barely mentioned. They even got Payday, the snack, to come back and sponsor the car. And I will say, as much as it was great to see Blaine okay, we just really haven't seen anything out of Blaine, period, this year. I mean, they parted ways with SS Greenlight. And even this move over to the 0-2, he just hasn't done anything. He's run poorly in the 0-2 in the past, and he was running poorly in this race. He qualified outside the top 30. He was running outside the top 30 and managed to break the car in 35 laps. I'm glad he's okay, and I'm glad he's back in a race car, but let's not act like that Blaine Perkins has torn up a lot of stuff, because he has. And when he's not tearing up stuff, he's not running very good. And we know the Hour Motorsports car is capable of top 20 finishes. I really wish Kyle Weatherman was in that car. It's a shame that Kyle Weatherman, after getting 12th for Jesse Iwuji last year, wasn't even in this race. Then came the big moment on lap 68, where we literally had the big one for some reason. I still don't understand this crash. Somehow both Harvick RCR throwbacks spun exactly simultaneously. It's so weird how exactly the 2 and the 21 spun around. And I mean, it was just a huge crash. Only wiped out, surprisingly, 3 cars. The 9, the 19, the 16 were the only cars actually wiped out from this crash initially. The other cars that were involved, the 44, the 43, the 45 spun around but didn't hit anything. The 6 spun around, but he didn't hit anything. The 07, the 25, the 78 was involved in an accident as well. The Backmarkers got chewed up, but they still managed to finish good. But it was kind of funny. Towards the halfway end of this race, it was basically a race of outside the top 15 who had less damage to his car. And shout out to the 2 team of Sheldon Creed out there running a modified. That's never give up attitude, man. Even missing the entire left front fender and the hood, still managed to finish ahead of a couple of cars who still had their entire body panels. So shout out to them. Yeah, we had their usual caution, some long green flag runs, debris caution, spins, all that crap. but still only a couple of cars had fallen out. Even by the last race, Ryan Ellis in the 43 they had crashed. Sucks to see the Harvick throwback torn up. And on the last run, the 38 of Joe Graf Jr., who had literally run clean the entire race, rear ends a car on the restart and breaks a radiator and has to park it. So sucks for Joe Graf Jr. It's just kind of been the story of his career. Just even when he's having a good run, something will go wrong. But he's a good guy. The 39 was literally blowing up for 4 laps straight, and they didn't black flag him, which was weird. And as we know, the finish, Kyle Larson and John Hunter Nemechek. I will say in some way, I don't know how to call that finish. Some people say Larson ran dirty. Some people say, it was vindication from Kansas. I don't know how to call it. Going into turn 3, I just call that's racing. For all the people who say he wrecked John Hunter off of turn 4, the 20 just plowed right into the 10 and wrecked himself. I don't understand why people think Larson wrecked him coming off of turn 4. He didn't. The 20 drove right into the 10 and wrecked himself. Yeah, the 10 hit the wall, but he bounced off by what? 4 inches, 4 or 5 inches? 20 wrecked himself. I like the car crash finishes, but man, it's like every year the Darlington Xfinity race turns into a car crash finish. Is that what 3 or 4 years in a row now? We've had at least one car crash type finish in the Xfinity race. It's fun, but it gets old. But it's still fun. Still fun. So Kyle Larson wins. Actually, kind of a funny story for everyone who didn't see it. The pit crew on that number 10 car was Ross Chastain's Cup pit crew, and they didn't go to victory lane. That's funny. That's actually quite funny that Kyle Larson won the race with Ross Chastain's pit crew, who then decided not to go to victory lane because it was Kyle Larson. They didn't want to be there with Kyle Larson. That's funny. Because you look at the victory lane photos, there's no pit crew guys there. Hardly any of them are there. So I find that quite funny, to be honest with you. A little tidbit I found out today from that Couch Racer account. If you want to call the 77 a backmarker, you can, but I don't. Again, glorified junior motorsports car, but still a great run for Carson Hocevar in his second start, 6th place. Jeremy Clements and his Jeff Bodine throwback was solid 14th. Anthony Alfredo and his awesome Dale Jr. throwback, despite some right front damage, was a solid 15th. Josh Williams and Ross Chastain, double top 20 for Mario Goslin's team. Ty Dillon. I don't know if it's just Ty Dillon this year, but man, for a return to the Xfinity Series, the 3-car literally did nothing. I don't know if it's Ty Dillon. I don't know if Richard Childress and the team just didn't put any effort into this car, but the 3-car literally did nothing this whole race. So I would actually call that 19th disappointing. Patrick Emmerling had a clean race, 21st. Stefan Parsons with his damaged car drove up to a solid 22nd. Brennan Poole, 23rd. Jeffrey Earnhardt, he was having some motor problems towards the end of the race. He wasn't running at full song. 26th. Matt Mills in the Herbie car. Shout out to that Herbie car, 28th. Greg Galding, man, like I said, it was a rough day for him. Still led a lap. 29th, Kyle Sieg. Like I said, it all went to wrong for RSS in the last couple laps. 28 wrecked, 39 blew up, and the 38 crashed in the final 15 laps. Oh, yeah. All 3 cars at one point were in the top 20. With 20 laps to go, all 3 RSS cars were in the top 20. By the end of the race, all 3 RSS cars were out of the top 25. That hurts. But yeah, the race was okay. The finish was good. Like I said, Darlington doesn't disappoint, but noticing a trend from the truck race, very few, if any, backmarkers actually getting good runs. The lady in black was definitely not the kindest to the backmarkers in the first 2 races. And for Cup, it wouldn't be much different. 2023 Goodyear 400, obviously just the 36 cars. Nobody goes home as usual. Some really kind of the same entry list, no real changes. Ryan Newman was kind of the big change. He was back in the 51. Brennan Poole was in the 15, so no J.J. Yaley this weekend. That's okay, even though we all miss him. And B.J. McLeod was back in his 78 car. BJ had a rough race. I was listening to BJ's radio. The one thing I will say about BJ McLeod, he's very calm. BJ McLeod doesn't yell. He doesn't get angry. He just kind of stays in the same tone. But, man, that 78 had a rough race. Even though they had that cool sponsorship from the Daily Downforce Party Bus with all the NASCAR YouTubers, other fellow NASCAR YouTubers, BJ in that car had no speed. They were actually splitting the stages because they were running so slow. They were pitting in between stages just to try to keep up their pace. But, I mean, they were on fresh tires, and they were still getting outran by Denny Hamlin on old tires on lap times, comparing lap times. It was a rough race for BJ McLeod. It was. And even then, as hard as he was still going, he would actually still fail to finish the race. At one point, he was 12 laps down and still running. That's how rough it got. BJ was having a tough race. Brennan Poole, like I said, he had a rough weekend. He didn't really get a chance to get out of the box in this Cup race. They had engine troubles in practice and qualifying, which relegated him to slowest. And during the race, even though they had appeared to get the engine problems fixed, a transmission failure, only 39 laps into the race, ruined his day. So probably one of the worst weekends for the 15 this year, and not what they needed for the top 33, charter battle. Ryan Newman, he had an okay race, started 26th, fell back early. The two Spire cars, I would say both Spire cars had rough performances. Ryan Newman wasn't doing very good. Again, not very kind to the backmarkers. You had Front Row Motorsports and JTG Doherty who were up there. JTG Doherty deserved a top 10 finish. Unfortunately, luck didn't put them there. Gilligan's Island, I love calling him Gilligan's Island. It's kind of my nickname from him. Todd Gilliland and a badass Elton Sawyer throwback. He ran 11th, spoiler. But we had multiple crashes throughout the race. Pole sitter, Martin Truex Jr., best car all day. He crashed out in a funky crash. Ross Chastain crashed out in a funky crash. Larson versus Chastain. Again, not really here to talk about that, but what a mess. That's all I'll say about it. What a mess. But yeah, Brennan Poole was out early. BJ McLeod fell out with a steering issue, I believe after they broke a toe link after hitting the wall, so they were done for the day. 32nd for BJ. It's just, like I said, it's been a rough year. Outside of a couple of great performances at Vegas and Auto Club, really has not been a good year for Live Fast Motorsports, unfortunately. Ryan Newman had kind of a tough race towards the end, spun out late, but still managed to finish 28th. Ty Dillon, 27th. Again, he didn't really do anything all day either. Both of the Legacy Motor Club cars crashed out again. That wasn't their fault. It was just mainly due to the 43 not getting the rear tire on right, which spun the 43 out, collecting the 42, once again hurting the 42's pretty decent run. Corey LaJoie, 24th. Michael McDowell, due to a speeding penalty, and then an eventual crash, was down in 33rd. But Todd Gilliland and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. were the lone backmarkers, I would say, that really got good runs. 13th for Ricky Stenhouse and 11th for Todd Gilliland. Again, it sucks that Todd's not technically full-time in that 38 car, but Todd's really showing, man. He's got it. He's got the talent, and I would love to see what Todd Gilliland could do in a higher profile ride. But yeah, the Cup race was okay. I would say out of the three races in the weekend, it was the weaker of the three, but I'm still not calling it a bad race. I would just say out of the three races, it was the weakest. Looking at owner standings coming out of that race, the top 33 charter battle, obviously with the 42 finishing ahead of the 15. The 42 is back up to 32nd. The 15 has been dropped to 33rd. 42 Legacy Motor Club. Right now, the top 31 and above are locked in. It is really between the 42, the 15, the 51, and the 77 at this point. The 78 of Live Fast has been mathematically gone. Unless they somehow win a race, they're not making the Owners' Championship for this year. And I was wondering that since, Ware is now out of the 51 and we can actually get someone talented behind the wheel of the 51, will the 51 become the primary for the Rick Ware again? I was wondering that, and I think it should. The 51 is now only 1 point behind the 15. And if they actually pass each other at the next points paying event, don't be shocked. Don't be shocked about that. I definitely think they need to focus on the 51. It is the primary Rick Ware car after all. The 15 has kind of always been the placeholder entry with random drivers. But yeah, it begs in question. I don't think Rick Ware is going to get both cars inside the top 33. The 77 has definitely closed in. At one point, the 77 was 45 points behind the Rick Ware cars. Now it is only 19 and 20 points. The 77 has finally started to put together some good finishes, and I think you got to keep Yaley in that car if you want to try to keep one of the Rick Ware cars inside that top 33 and not have them both fall out of the top 33, which would force Rick Ware to get rid of a charter this year. It would be the 51 charter. That is the charter that is up for grabs by the end of the year. Either NASCAR will repossess it or Rick Ware will sell it. But if he can get, but I will say this, if Rick can get the 51 inside the top 33, that means we could still see 2 Rick Ware cars for 2024. So if you're right now, if you're the field, so to say, if you're the NASCAR Cup Series field, you are actually rooting for the 77 right now, because if we can get that 51 out of the top 33, then Rick has to sell the charter or NASCAR repossess it. Whereas whereas Rick and them want to get that 51 back inside the top 33. So it's kind of a funky format right there on what the teams are trying to do to get those oh so precious charters. But yeah, so that was Darlington. The top 33 charter battle is definitely heating up. Looks like the 42 of Legacy Motor Club's finally starting to put together some momentum to pull away from those back markers. Like I said, Live Fast Motorsports definitely having a tough year. The 77 finally coming into their own, even though they're still not performing all that good. And Rick Ware has definitely had a couple of bad weeks, but I know they'll bounce back. So now we move on to Wilkesboro. This part won't take up a lot of time, mainly because it's the all-star race. We're more talking about the truck race, honestly. Truck race, big field, as we all predicted, 40 trucks. Some interesting entries in the race. Bubba Wallace back in the 1 again. Johnny Sauter is back in the 04 again. Norm Benning, they're trying really hard to get one of their noses updated on trucks, so Norm is trying to make it there. Kyle Larson is in the 7 for Alex Bowman. Caden Honeycutt is back in the 20 again, so that's awesome. Josh Williams, everyone's favorite Josh Williams, will be in the 22, and this will be an entry fielded by AM Racing, not Rayon Brothers Racing. Chris Hacker is back in the 30 for On Point Motorsports. Josh Rayon is in his 33, but again, I think he's just heading into a DNQ, unfortunately. Akin Oriogata's back in the 46 for G2G, no 47 truck. William Byron's in the 51 for Kyle Busch, even though we have 2 Ricky Hendrick schemes in the field, so that'll be confusing. Christopher Bell in a second Hattori truck. Very rare to see that again. Christopher Bell in the 61. Connor Jones in the 66 for Thor Sport, and Parker Kligerman in the 75 for Henderson again. Looking at the owner's points for this race, it's going to be a pretty hectic qualifying session. These teams practice and qualify on 2 different days. If you look at the schedule, this is not the traditional 20-minute and going straight into qualifying. Now, for the people who are wondering in the chat, I would say the only reason why Norm showed up, yeah, he probably knows he's going to miss the show, but at the end of the day, it's Wilkesboro. You know, you want to be a part of history. You want to have some fun. I'm sure Norm's probably going to run a crap load of practice laps. That's probably Norm's race. I'm sure Norm knows that he won't make the show. But, you know, you have that, a 50-minute practice session? You could run like 40 laps. Go out there and have some fun. 40 laps. You don't have to worry about NASCAR parking you. And that's probably what Norm's going to do, in all honesty. He's probably just going to go out there and run some practice laps and then get his qualifying lap. And no, he ain't going to make the show, but still had a good time nonetheless. That's why I feel like Norm's showing up. But yeah, looking at the owner's points right now, 4 trucks are going home. The trucks that are the most in jeopardy, the 6 is the lowest in points. The 75. Keep in mind, if Parker Kligerman screws up that qualifying lap, they have no points to save him. Same with Kyle Larson. Got to remember that. Kyle Larson, I don't believe he is saved on the past winner's provisional. The 7 missed COTA. with Alex Bowman. So as much as it's weird to say, Parker Kligerman and Kyle Larson are on the bubble. They do have to crack that top 31. So just a little bit of added pressure. Number one, you got to qualify good, but you also got to make the show number one. The 33 of Rayom, again, missing that race, really dropped the 33 in points, down to 36th. Arguably the lowest full-time truck in points right now, which is not going to help them for the rest of the year. The 20 of Caden Honeycutt, I think they'll be fine. He's a great qualifier. The 46 I'd be skeptical on. The 12 I'd be skeptical on. And the 45 I'd be skeptical on. I think 30th and above, the 30 truck of On Point, 30th in points, ironically. All of those trucks and above, I think are safe. Those trucks are fine. But everybody from 31st and down, I say that's where your DNQs are going to come from. My personal DNQ picks, you guys can put yours in the chat. I'll take the 6, 33, 46, and the 12. Those will be my 4 DNQs for the truck race. Norm, like I said, I think Norm's just out there to have a good time. Rayom, it wouldn't shock me if they do the same thing they did at Darlington. Just bring some scuffs and just show up, see if they have a shot at it. G2G, Akinori's going to give it his best shot, but Akinori just ain't quick enough, unfortunately. And Spencer Boyd, well, if he misses the show, again, it's just because he's slow. And we already went over that when we talked about Darlington. So let's see here in the chat. We got the 6, 33, 12, and 46. Yeah, a lot of people kind of saying the same. We are not expecting to DNQ. Norm has put a ton of work into his truck. I know, Dan. I know you guys got a lot of – no, you're not expecting to DNQ, guys. And trust me, if Norm could make the show, that'd be awesome. And if Norm does make the show – I'm going to mark out just like I did when he made Bristol. You guys remember when Norm made Bristol? I blew up because I was so happy to see Norm make the race. But I'm still going to put him on my DNQ list, Dan. For all, Dan in the chat, guys, for people who don't know, new viewers of the show, Dan works with Norm Benning. So he's a regular listener to the show. He tunes in from time to time. But hey, if you guys can prove me wrong, Dan, I hope you guys do. I hope you guys can prove me wrong, but I'm still going to keep him on my DNQ list. But hey, if Norm can make the show, that would be awesome. That would really say something. If Norm Benning could make the show, that would really say something about the other backmarkers in the truck series. That'd be cool. If Norm Benning could actually outrun, like, let's see, I think he'd have to beat 9 trucks. If Norm Benning could beat 10 trucks and lock himself in, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. No Xfinity race, of course, even though they should be racing at Wilkesboro, but we got the All-Star race, the All-Star Open. Obviously, we have 16 cars for this race. Kind of really sucks. You know, all the people who started this grassroots campaign for BJ McLeod. We got to vote BJ McLeod into the All-Star race. You know, let's get BJ McLeod into the All-Star race. We are going to do our best to prove you wrong. Okay, Dan. Okay. I really hope you trust me. I hope you guys do. I love you, Dan. You know I love you, man. You know I love you, man. But I hope you guys prove me wrong. Trust me. Trust me. I really do hope, because everyone knows I'm a Norm Benning fan at heart. So I am. I've been a fan of Norm Benning since 2008 in his ARCA days, back when he drove the 84 car. So I've been a Norm Benning fan for a long time. If you guys can prove me wrong, please prove me wrong. I would love to see. I really do. I'm not kidding. On next week's show, I will send out a heartfelt apology. But please, Dan. But you know I love you, Dan. You know I love you. Good luck to you guys this weekend. Good luck to you guys. But yeah, going back to what I was saying about the Cup Series, BJ McLeod. We were all starting this grassroots campaign. Let's vote BJ McLeod into the All-Star race. The entry list comes out. BJ's not even driving the 78. Josh Bilicki is. And we're like, oh, come on. Because we all wanted to see BJ McLeod make the All-Star race, and he's not even driving the 78. Not to say that we can't vote Josh Bilicki in, but we all kind of wanted BJ to be in. I really say that kind of opens up the fan vote. Honestly, looking at this All-Star Open right now, you got a lot of fan favorites in there. I know Noah Gragson has done like this really kind of dumb campaign of trying to get himself entered. I feel like that would be too easy. I could see the Dinger, AJ Allmendinger, getting the fan vote. I could see Corey LaJoy getting the fan vote. I don't think Josh Berry will get the fan vote. Personally, if you really want me to say who I think should get the fan vote, I would say vote Ryan Newman. Let's get Ryan Newman in that All-Star race. That would be good. That would be good. Yeah, that'd be a good one. So I voted for Ryan Newman. You guys can vote for whoever you want, obviously. I'm not going to tell you who you guys have to vote for. I'm not going to tell you guys who to vote for, but I voted for Ryan Newman because I'm a Ryan Newman fan, and I know that if he does make that main event, he can do very well. So let's see here. I haven't even looked at the All-Star format this year. Is it what? 2 stages and then a finale and then a fan vote? So 4 guys. Is that what it is? 4 guys make it? 3 stage winners and then the fan vote. Is that what it is? If someone can answer that, me in the chat, because I haven't looked at the All-Star rules format personally. Because I'm sorry, guys, the All-Star race, even at a track like Wilkesboro, it's entertaining because it's Wilkesboro, but the All-Star race really hasn't interested me in general. 5-6 years, almost probably 10 years since the All-Star race really meant something to me. But I hope we can get a backmarker team in there. I hope we can get maybe a Rick Ware car in there. We'll just have to see. I think, the thing is, though, is that even with guys like Yaley, guys like, Dylan, it'll be interesting to see how hard they push. Will the 78, the 51, and the 15 push? I think Ryan Newman's going to push it. But for teams like the 77 and the 78, will they push to try to make this race? At the end of the day, it is Wilkesboro. It's not like a random race at Texas where some teams purposefully didn't push it because they didn't care about making the main event. But it's Wilkesboro. You want to make the main event. So I think there's going to be that added pressure to really try to make the main event. We even have an open car, how they call it, open car running this race. The 13 of Chandler Smith trying to make the race. I really think it's wide open. It wouldn't shock me to see J.J. Yaley being aggressive. It wouldn't shock me to see Ryan Newman. We know he's going to be aggressive. Todd Gilliland, Michael McDowell being aggressive. Because it's not just about making the main event. It's Wilkesboro, man. You want to be in that main event. But God, if I had to pick some stage winners, I'm going to go with the big teams just because they usually outperform. I think Chandler Smith actually wins a stage. I think A.J. Allmendinger wrecks his way to a stage win. And I'll give the last one to Ryan Preece. In the fan vote, I hope it goes to Ryan Newman. So that's kind of Wilkesboro for you. Again, not the biggest Wilkesboro preview because it's not an actual points race. It's just kind of an open race for fun. Hopefully we can get a backmarker in that all-star race. I hope we can. So, and yeah, like I said, to Dan, if Dan is still watching for Norm Benning, I hope you guys can prove me wrong. I love you, Dan. Good luck this weekend. And yeah, if Norm Benning can make the truck race, that'd be effing awesome. That would be awesome. So, long episode, guys. Again, I love doing this show with you guys. I know my personal life hasn't been the best lately. Doing this show, you guys help so much. I used to do this show with only one live viewer. And just have like 13. At one point we had 19, but I even have 13 right now. Live viewers just means a lot. Oh, we're down to 12. Oh, well. Just thank you guys for the support, continued support for the show. It really means a lot to me. And we will catch you guys on Thursday for the ARCA Racing podcast. Normally we'd be doing this show on Thursday, but with no ARC entry list, we did it today. So I'll see you guys on Thursday live at 7 p.m. Central Time for the ARCA Racing podcast, Nashville review, and Flat Rock preview. So you guys have a good rest of your Tuesday night. Colby Evans, Start and Park Car, signing off. So long, guys.